I'm Brett Keenan, your commentator for today's Formula One World Championship race here at beautiful Monaco for the Monaco Grand Prix. Now, yesterday we had quite an interesting F3 race with Sebastian Spicer taking the victory in the outright on-track victory, but the outright winner for the F3 was Connor Paisley taking his first win of year. So we now go from F3 to F1, and of course later down the road we go to F2. So everything is in perspective, and we're just waiting to have all the drivers show up for... Sorry, I'm just listening back on this and kind of distracting myself. So we're just getting ready for people to start coming in. So Daniel Vale, of course, who took part in yesterday's race, didn't have quite the best result he would have wanted, so it came down to perspective at the end. John Lindbergh, of course, he'll be looking to try and bounce back after a few races where strategy and qualifying have been at his haven't been at his strongest point. James Retief trying to establish a perspective, and we're just waiting to see how he fares out in these tight, twisty streets. A special shout out to our viewers all around the world watching. One in particular I know is watching, so if you are watching, Shannon, welcome to the broad light spectrum, so enjoy that one. Anyway, so Mark Gisandi's had a pretty good year this year, so he's looking to capitalise on what has been quite an interesting year. He's been showing some pretty good pace over the course of the two with the Ferrari engine as part of the Ferrari outfit. Like a step backwards, but given the circumstances of how everything plays out, it's by no means change in perspective. Speaking of Ferrari, of course, we've got Matthias Vicelli in the Toro Rosso. Now, he won this race subsequently last season in the GP2 category, so watch out for him. He's going to show pace, as will George Vandenberg, our previous race winner from Spain, so keep an eye out for him as well, and he showed some pretty good pace in the invitational race yesterday as part of the F3's lack of numbers, meaning that we do need invitationals. And then of course we've got Joshua Law at the moment, so we're just waiting to see who else shows up. So Joshua Law made the transition from F2 to F1 in the space of a race, so he raced Australia in the F2 and then made the move to F1 as a switch to the we call it a driver swap. So it was a driver swap between himself and Russell Fook. Russell Fook now in the F2, Joshua Law in the F1. So we're missing some of the main key competitors, and just trying to wait for them to get their asses on here so we can get underway. We've got roughly 4 minutes left before the start of qualifying, and these drivers like to push their limits, so there's going to be a lot of perspective changes coming up. A few regulation rule changes will be coming up before Canada. That much I'll let you know in the F3 preceding that, because whatever these regulations will be covered through F3, and usually will be announced through F3 via either myself or Matthew Plevy, who is the commentator for F3. I'm just going to continue trying to bring these people back in, so just bear with me for just a minute. I'm going to start the spamming process, if you want to call it that. So just having a look through the list of some of these names, and there's a few people that I thought would have been here today that have not said anything, that haven't shown up. So so now we've got Alex Little, who made his debut in the Mercedes for the first time last weekend, and proved to be a genuine contender by scoring a podium. Now, Alex Little has had a very good ratio for podiums this season. So, other than France, of which he didn't attend, Alex Little has had a near 100% podium streak. So that's something worth looking out for in the coming days. So it looks like we're only going to have roughly about 10 people here today. One person I thought, well, two people I thought would have been here were Robert Zwanikin and Bradley Betts. So just going to give them a bit of a hurry up to see what's going on here, because we only really do have 1 minute left before qualifying gets underway. So here comes Mason Ward, who's had a pretty below average season so far, and looking to try and capitalise on some mistakes made, poor qualifying, and just trying to get some general pace in that Williams. So Williams haven't had the best of luck so far. Of course, they have had a race win with Bradley Betts, who still hasn't made any indication of whether he's showing up. In fact, he's just about to reply on Discord. And just for the record, we do use Discord now as our means of... So it looks like Bradley Betts will not be turning up from the sounds of it. So, and yeah, actually, that's another person that's not missing. That's missing, Axel Ericsson. So, wonder what's going on with Axel. So we'll have a 5-minute delay, just so we can figure out what's going on. Maybe starting the broadcast a little early was a bit of a mistake, but either way, just like to thank the viewers for the patience and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully we'll get underway shortly. We're just waiting to see where a few other people are, but it looks like we're going to only have roughly about 10 drivers, so it's pretty good. So yeah, anyway, last season we ran Skype as our means of communication, and it really came down to sorry, I'm just reading through all the Skype stuff, that the Discord stuff, so it all goes pretty random. So we're going to start in 4 minutes time. So there is now a 4-minute warning for people to get their butts into gear. I'm going to send them out one last set of invites so that we can have them there. And then once that's done and we hit the 5-minute mark, we will get underway. So, bit disappointing to say the least with the numbers attending for F1. It seems that F2 and even F3 has a bit more going for it at the moment. And, you know, being a league coordinator myself, you know, running this whole shebang and all that kind of stuff, it's very disappointing to see such a low level of drivers here this weekend. So hopefully this will all change by Canada. Of course, we are coming into the Christmas period, so it's scarcer, which means there might be less and less every time, but Daniel, the race is being streamed because we're going to be changing it to streaming instead of delayed broadcasting. So I'm not going to be answering everyone's comments during the race. Although if you feel the need to ask a question during the race, and you know, pertaining rules, pertaining driver standards and all that, feel free to ask a question and I'll try and get to it as quickly as I can and answer your question. So yeah, also don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already doing that through the channel, and also leave your comments below with questions that we could also probably ask during the F3 next weekend. as well as during other races, driver of the day as well, so all that kind of stuff. No, I won't be responding to those kind of messages either, so don't send questions, silly things like that. So we are now got 2 minutes left on the clock before we get underway, and it looks like we're only going to have 10 drivers today. So a few drivers say they're going to show up, but it doesn't look like it's going to be in time for qualifying to conclude and the race to begin. So again, very disappointing to see so little happening today, and I would hope to see more. Yeah, well, I think we all like to see that too. So we're seeing numbers drop more than anything, and fuck's sake, sorry, pardon my language. Anyway, so there's not much else to do, so I think we're actually just going to get started. So the people know that when I go spectator, it's the cue to start. So, well, at least I think so. Yep. So we'll just now watch the people, all these things go from black to green. We're not seeing it quite yet, but we've got enough people there to get the timer started, and we're now about to get underway for the qualifying sessions. No, you can't. This is all no assist, so sorry. Ask questions pertaining to the race, not questions like that. So we're now getting underway for qualifying for the Transnation Formula 1 World Championship here at Monaco. This 19-corner track is one of the toughest tracks in the F1 calendar to get a grasp on. We have it's a track with no room for error other than the Nouvelle chicane, pretty much, and it's going to be a real test to see how these drivers play out. Now, I don't know what my mic quality is like, so if my mic quality is alright, let me know there. I don't want to feel like when I yell I'm going to destroy people's eardrums when that happens. So we're starting to get quite a good number of people coming to view the channel, so this is good. So I wonder if there's a way I can get rid of that on-air thing, so that I mean, it's good to see because it knows what's going on, but it does get a little distracting. But either way, so for the first broadcast of the Transnation Formula 1 World Championship, the live stream for the first time in, I would say, in history, but of course we've been live streaming the F3 race for a few rounds now, but this is the first time that the train all looking good so far. The biggest issue that I found is that my network quality is not the greatest, so I was scared about the connectivity between myself and the cars, and it doesn't look too bad at the moment, so it looks like all things are running well. I'm just hoping that my internet can be stable enough to hold on to this and produce you guys a good show. So Mackenzie Stewart is actually the first driver to go out on circuit, which is a bit rare for Mackenzie, given that he's usually someone that will wait for the time to actually, wait for drivers to come out, set a benchmark, and then try and beat it. So Mackenzie to be the first driver out means that he is a little worried about his pace against these other people. So being first on the track means he's the one setting the benchmark time, and he's got to be absolutely on to it. So going through the Nouvelle chicane looked pretty smooth as he now heads into Tabac, one of the fastest corners on the track. See, the interesting thing that's going to happen throughout this commentary is watching all the different lines of how people approach these corners. Now, Mackenzie took the swimming pool quite cautiously. Now, into Razkaz, he's not sliding as much, which means that his car's rear stability seems to be alright. Bit of a tank slapper just coming out of the last turn, and he's now going to fire the first lap. So heading into Sandervoort, very smooth, tries not to grab the fence as much as possible. Up, heading into Massenet. Well, we got someone on Sector 3, but that will be just someone slowing down to make room. And then into Casino. And then through here, you just want to be able to get the car positioned perfectly, because so you don't have to do as much turning into the hairpin. And actually, Mackenzie does that quite well in the first go, so not too bad. Now, into the tunnel, this is another corner you just want to keep off the wall, which he does. A bit of a slide coming through, and then into the tunnel, flat out through here, just nearly gives the wall a bit of a clean into the Nouvelle chicane. And looks like he's handled that pretty well. Bit of a slide, nearly grabs the outside fence, heading into the corner, into the back. Not as aggressive as most people were in F3 and then through the swimming pool. Slides his way through, grabs the fence, takes a bit of his wing off, and he's done it again too, so even further calamity. So he's gonna instantly jump into the pits, and that's his one done. Now I think the next driver on track is Joshua Law. So Joshua Law will be the first driver to set a benchmark time, and he almost takes Razkaz in a similar fashion to Mackenzie. So looks like Sector 3 could be the big talking point for the qualifying, as Josh crosses the line and sets a 1:13.6, which is not really quick, but in response to that, James Retief sets a 1:11.9. Now I'll just have a look at the tyres so I can figure out anything. Now March has set a 1:12.2 on ultras. No, sorry, Josh set the 13 ultras. George Vandenbroek does a 10 flat, and John Lindbergh behind does a 10.8. So George Vandenbroek already showing his quick pace at the moment. He did set pole position in the F3 race with a 1:8.7. So it's clear the lap was really shoddy from him too. So we think, well, Matt and I believe that there was possibility of an 8.2 in George Vandenbroek. So we've seen the 8s. Can any driver here today, of these select drivers, bridge out a 1:07? Now, a lot of people have said that in the AOR it's a possibility, but we've also found that a lot of those people have been wall riding, and wall riding will be heavily slammed down upon this weekend. So anyone caught doing any wall riding will be heavily punished for their actions, as Alex Little grabs the fence to back, heading onto his flying lap. It's looking a bit scruffy compared to Mackenzie's second sector, but the third sector definitely looks better, as John now sets a 19.6 to go to the top. And what does Alex Little do? He goes to the top with a 19.4, so it's not as quick as the current as what some of the F3 drivers were doing yesterday, but at the same time these guys are still just trying to find their feet and make situations meet. Now Daniel Vale, who I thought would have been already punching it well above his weight to go to the top, is going to only set a 112.5 on the Hypersoft, so that's a very interesting statement here. Okay, so what did I think of the crash in F3 yesterday? Well, it was definitely one of the most spectacular crashes I've ever seen in my many years of racing F1 racing games, and especially it's one of the biggest crashes I've seen in the Transnation Formula 1 category to date. Any category, you name it, it's the worst crash I've ever seen. That kind of incident that we saw is what you would call a public lobby incident, so that was something to behold, and something that we can kind of tick off the bucket list for our category. Two successful campaigns at the moment, so and then of course we're still building up towards our full F3 category, and then of course next season, once we get a somewhat full F3, then we'll begin working on F4. So for people that want to kind of understand what's happening next season in regards to categories, F1, F2 and F3 will be our three primary categories, with F4 being what F3 is today. Well, today I speak metaphorically, our Beatty Test League for the week, for this season. F1 will remain no assists, F2 will be medium assists, and F3 will be all assists. So, and whatever overlap there might be with medium assist users that aren't quite as quick as those who could be capable of being in F2. So, watching Mason Ward here in the Williams, and he's going to try and set a benchmark time. He sets a 112.888 That's quite cool, actually. You don't see a Triple Eight too often. Sorry, talking Craig Lowndes semantics there. Now, the only driver left to set a time is, well, other than Mackenzie Stewart, is our previous race winner from last season's GP2 category, Matthias Ficelli. Now, Matthias has been very exceptional when it comes to wet weather proficiency and street circuit proficiency. He's always punched above his weight, and speaking of punching above his weight, he's now just given the wall Armco at to back a nice centre punch, so that's cost him a front wing, and it's just compounding a pretty disappointing aspect for the Argentinian. And Joshua Law looked like he was trying to get out of the way of that, whether he was trying to make a space or something there, and he actually ended up nearly parking it at Razkaz and simulating what we call the Schumacher corner. So Mackenzie now responds with a 19.3, only to be a tenth faster. So these magical numbers that we saw in F3 aren't happening in F1, which is a little bit surprising to say the least. Jules Vanderbroek's now going to come down the line and see what he does. It's got 110.1, so he's a tenth slower than his fastest at the moment. Now, all drivers are pretty much, apart from Mason Ward, and Josh is still on the Ultras as well, so your top 10, basically, which is your top 10, because there is only 10 drivers, so every driver here this weekend is going to score points, which is great for them, disappointing for us viewers and commentators, because, you know, we want to see a full grid. F2 in Bahrain and France, we were most fortunate to have 19 drivers in each race, you know, one shy from a full grid, and that's another thing we need to tick off. But to have 19 people there was a great feat. To only have 10 here in F1, the highest pinnacle racing at Monaco, and I can kind of understand it being, you know, what with it being Monaco and whatnot, but you compromise your championship by missing races, whether it's deliberate or whether it's by circumstance. You're destroying your championship chances, no matter how you look at it. And I can understand that people have different jobs, different aspects. We're all different parts of the world, but at the same time, you need to be more informative about your commitment when it comes to these sort of circumstances. So definitely the driver who's punched, in my personal opinion, who's punched well above his weight this weekend so far is James Retief in position 5, who we're on board with now. He's definitely showing that looks like he's got some pretty good street circuit prowess, and could be an underdog to take victory. Now, I was about to say that Daniel Vale is the driver that's really not making exceptions. So we got the first driver in. No, sorry, I thought that looked like an 8. So John Lindbergh now responds and goes to the top with a 19.1. So yeah, Daniel Vale's just answered to the critics about the about not being there, and Joshua Law's just disconnected. Luckily his car's in garage, so it won't get in the way of everyone else. So John Lindbergh dangerously close to the 8. So